Welcome to the 87th episode of the Cast That Ends Creation. I'm your host, Chris Deering. This is the show where I interview bands and public figures from the mathcore adjacent communities. If you beautiful people in chat have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them and I'll try to read them aloud. If you'd like to sub for $5, get access to some exclusive emotes as well as access to the interviews before they hit YouTube and other streaming platforms. You can also sub for free by attaching Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. It's like taking $5 from Jeff Bezos' pocket and putting it into mine. If you'd like to join us, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on streaming service, and you have no idea what I'm talking about, this show is first shown on Twitch. Join us every Sunday and Wednesday at twitch.tv/thecastthatenscreation for the live cast. With that out of the way, let me introduce our guest today, who's dropping their debut album, Simulacrum and Stimuli, last Friday. Welcome in Otis Chamberlain of Infinite Hex. How's it going?
Hey, bro. Good.
Hey. Glad you could join me. Let me start off with the imagery of Infinite Hex is obviously supposed to be like a futuristic electronic world or maybe another planet entirely. But the name basically means like never-ending curse. Doesn't seem to match up with exactly what the music sounds like. So why did you go with Infinite Hex?
So, I've had this thing with my friend Callum for years where online we just come all the time making up imaginary bands and imaginary band names to go with them. And that's real easy. And we've got like hundreds of these hypothetical bands that are never going to happen with amazing names. But when it comes to actually naming something you're seriously doing, I got fucking stuck on it. There's this thing online, I can't remember, it was like a meme video or something from a while ago. These two kind of redneck guys maybe who are hip-hoppers or whatever, and they did this thing. There was a line in there about infinity knives. I'm gonna stab you with infinity knives or something. And I was
that's so edgy.
I know, it was real cringy as well, but I like that. Infinity knives sounds cool, but then of course go online and there's like 10 people have called their band Infinity Knives, and it's like, okay, well, whatever. And then someone else mentioned something about Hex. The words just kind of Legoed together in my head, and I went, you know what? That's what it's going to be, and I'm not going to waste my time thinking about that anymore. And that's kind of just what we landed on. And
okay.
I landed on, and that worked for me. It kind of worked for the oeuvre of the project. Yeah.
Well, I think it sounds cool. You also have a friend joining us. Who do you have on your shoulder?
This is Klaus. Klaus is actually a girl, but because we got her quite recently from being a baby, and they're really hard to sex when they're that young. But we found out later on that she's actually a girl. But yeah, she's my little homie. She lives on my shoulder most days. So
you have a lot of animals actually with you, right?
Yeah, my wife does bird rehabilitation, so in a stroke of irony, I went from a band called Ornithologist to meeting a woman who became almost an ornithologist. So now we live with we've got like 40 birds or something here.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You were saying you started a long time ago with a project called Ornithologist. What made you want to start making crazy music like this?
Well, I was always into weird stuff. I won't go too far back, but primarily early to mid-noughties, I started this project with a couple of dudes in New Zealand called Akanami. They were Kiwis that moved to Aussie that I'd met on a trip to Aussie. And then like a couple of years later, mid-noughties, they arrive in my hometown and we're like, fuck, let's make some music. So we started writing, and like I think at that time we were the three bands we were super into were like Meshuggah, Cephalic Carnage, and this Polish band called Kobong, which is fucked up weird
What's
shit.
the
Hard
name?
to Kobong, K-O bong.
Bong is in like you smoke it? Okay.
Well, to say that, so Kobong, and
okay.
they're really weird in this Eastern Bloc way, but they've kind of got this weird mathy thing going on, but then they've also got this really kind of indigenous European, almost Gregorian thing.
Dude, that
I'm
sounds insane.
gonna
What
stop
the
trying to
hell?
describe it because it's such a smoosh of shit. The quick backstory to that was a couple of Polish hitchhikers in New Zealand left a dubbed tape of this Kobong album at a friend's house, and then we got into it, and then we really fucking got into it because we realized how fucked up it was. Kind of parallel in a way to what Meshuggah were doing, but not in a clinical precise way. Very kind of, I don't know, more like what Captain Beefheart and like Tom Waits sort of stuff is to jazz. You know, it's like junk, kind of a rough around the edges approach to doing the mathy thing. But in doing that, they have this really fucking amazing general sound that was like, holy shit, this is fresh to my ears at least. And culturally, perhaps I found out later on that there's a kind of a sound to that particular part of Poland and era in Poland that a lot of bands had going on, but this was our first exposure to it. And then so with these two dudes, Ben and Matt, we were like, okay, well, let's start this band and try and do a bit of the weird time, but do some weird, choppy, blasty, weird shit like Cephalic, and then try and get the other stuff like Kobong in and smoosh it up and see what comes out. And that was going pretty well for a time. And then we got another guitarist who moved to our city from a little way away, Matt Fasandia, aka Swampy, because the city he moved to our city is nicknamed the Swamp. So he was Swampy. And
Okay.
we all ended up living in this apartment in the middle of Wellington, my hometown, above a venue in the middle of the city, so we could practice there and not get noise complaints and stuff. And he lived in a little like room on the roof, and we had the main floor under that. And so like half the band was living together, and he was into birds. Oh, he had a book on birds, and it was like a ornithological book with all of the different kinds of taxonomy and names of different birds. And we were just up there one day smoking weed and looking at it and going, you know what? All these bird names sound like they would make great song titles, like, you know, the black breast. Fuck, I can't remember. You know, the speckled sage thrasher and the blue-crested owlet and all this sort of stuff. We're like, fuck. And of course, there's like, you know, bands like a logicist and necrophagist and psychophagist and all this stuff. So we're like, you know, with the ist, and we're like, well, let's start a joke band. Let's do one, and we'll just like pretend to do bird song with weird, short, blasty stuff and have fun with it. You know, this is MySpace days, like 2005 or something, 2006. And so, because he was like me, he was a drummer, but he could play guitar in a certain way. And so we just thought, we'll just like do key mash tappy weirdo shit and put in some stupid riffs and play over blast beats and wear bird masks, and we'll make a joke of it. And of course,
Yeah, dude, that's totally MySpace from back in the day. Like, just
for real,
crazy shit. Honestly, when I first came across, or I'm probably not gonna say it right, ornithologist, I thought that you guys are gonna have like birds like incorporated into it, like bird song and stuff like that. Kind of disappointed that it wasn't like that the whole way through. I feel like I might have heard one or two, but I'm not completely sure.
We did this thing when we played live where we did an intro track, and I think there's it might be on YouTube somewhere, but it's definitely on the start of the album that's on Ornithologist Bandcamp. Yeah. It's like a 2 minutes, and it comes from basically silence, like a field recording of in the forest or whatever, and you hear a couple of and then it slowly builds and gets more birds until it's just this cacophony of like, it's almost like white noise. And then there's like a 2 count into, and then we would start the set. So that's the way that we would do that.
That's awesome, man.
But so that has lots of birds in it. And there's a couple of tracks that have birds and samples in it. But I mean, we were trying to make bird noises with our guitar, so that was kind of like the thing. We were trying to do our own version of bird song in 60 to 90-second blast beat stupid riff format. So that's kind of that was the game plan.
So by a bird mask, do you mean like something that goes completely over your head, or is it just like a beak that you strap on?
Yeah, so it was basically just like a headpiece. Think of like a masquerade mask or whatever. It's got the eye holes, and we just built like beaks off it.
Dude, that is so sick.
Horrible man. To play in. Absolutely fucking horrible.
I could imagine they fall off all the time.
Well, let's just say I did a lot of R&D into making sure they would fit and that I could see through them, and that because when you move your head down, there's this big fucking beak right there, and half the time I would end up smacked because I have my guitar hitched so fucking high because I can't play any other way. The beak would smash onto the top string. So I kind of got to work out to play like looking down like this through this fucking hole with one eye and no depth perception, trying to work out if my finger was going to hit the 12th fret like it should or not, kind of thing. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, the music was so kind of cacophonous anyway. No, I don't think. And in a live situation, no one's really checking to make sure you've got that every single fucking note right.
Right.
And I'm such a key mash player anyway. Swampy was a lot more articulated, but I was kind of still a little fresh to playing live guitar in front of people at that stage. That was the other thing with the masks. It's like, oh, cool. I don't have to like look anyone in the eye. I'm like hidden behind this mask. So
right. So what happened to ornithologists?
So the quick backstory on that again, 2008, this band I was in, Akanami, we moved from Wellington to Melbourne, Australia. So we jumped the ditch. And by this stage, both bands were kind of like, ornithologist was our side project joke thing.
Okay, I got you.
We would still jump on bills and do our own shows and stuff. So it kind of morphed from this joke thing to a kind of a serious, we're writing fresh tracks and trying to get them live ready and all this stuff. So when we got to Australia, it only took a couple years. Swampy ended up taking over an old mycelium growing factory, which was just basically a whole bunch of refrigerated rooms that he converted into practice spaces, and started up this place called Magnet Studios, which was like 5 rehearsal rooms, a giant concrete bunker for recording, and then they had 2 other B studios because he was like a sound engineer as well. So he got really immersed over the years. He got really immersed in Magnet Studios and all that it entailed, and he was pretty much running it himself with a couple of volunteers, and also getting right into the experimental drone music because that's his other thing. And
that is the kind of thing you get into whenever you smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah, well, I mean, the band had been going for like 7-8 years at this point, and we stopped. I stepped back from the band, but we still remained bros and did some ornithologist stuff. But just things kind of go like that, or you get into your own shit. And I was getting more into synthesizers, and he was getting more into drone, and then trying to run Magnet. And so the available time that we would get to connect kind of diminished. And then in 2015, I tried to I'd started writing material for like a new EP, but my wife got offered to a job by Facebook, and they were like, oh well, she wasn't my wife at this stage, but like my long-term partner, and they were like, we'll move your whole family, just come to San Francisco and work for us. So we did that, and I ended up like 7,000 miles away from Swampy. And so yeah, geographical distance. I've tried to make music with people on the internet before, and it's hit and miss, and you're relying on it's not like living with your bandmates or being in the same city where you can get things together a lot easier. And
right.
So I would send him stuff, and he would send me little bits back, but it really just didn't have the
You guys didn't click anymore.
It wasn't that we didn't click, because we will always click musically. It was just like time and being older and having more
I guess he didn't really
distractions
have
in
the
our life.
drive or whatever to
Right, because his focus was going more back into his drone stuff, because he had new projects with people and Magnet and stuff, and I was living in San Francisco doing my synth stuff and trying to do the art thing there, and just, yeah, it wasn't for lack of want, more for lack of logistical facilitation and time and trying to get that to happen. So it was probably 2018. I think I'd got like 5 songs together. I'd been waiting a few years for him to kind of really chip in on that with no real return of ideas from him. So I said, hey bro, I'm gonna executive decision it. I'm gonna relinquish your responsibility from the project if you're okay with that, and I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna morph it and I'm gonna do my own thing with it under a different name. And he was like, please do. Like, you know, he didn't want to stand in my way of that. And it was kind of, the new stuff was already starting to move away from what Ornithologist was kind of doing, with more added synth stuff. And I'm kind of like, I've grown up trying to be, I don't know what the word is, I just want to do everything myself. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It sucks having to rely on people sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you have a vision, and your vision in particular is so weird that like it's hard to find someone talking to me on the same page. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, like, I grew up a drummer. Drum's my primary thing. So I've been in live drum and bass, live hip hop, metal, rock, experimental jazz. All those drums that really got me into all of the different types of music that I now love the most, and what I have tried to rope together into this project. But and that's what this project is. It's kind of like, I'm going to cherry pick all the things I like from all the different styles of music I like, and kind of. But you know, at that time around 2018, it was kind of like, well, okay, now's the time to start doing this properly, and really try and get more of the synthesizer. My wallpaper's falling down here.
I was wondering what that was. It sounded like water sloshing around or something. I was like, all right, whatever.
Anyway, we're in my studio where things fall down all the time, so it's okay. But yeah, so, and that was kind of, it was like, so I had this EP of 5 songs that I've been sitting on for a couple of years and just waiting. And when Swampy and me kind of agreed, then I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to go back and revisit these tunes with how can I change them, put more synth in, and sort of move it away from what Ornithologist was and make it more of an individuated thing. And so that ended up being the Permanently Delete All Items EP that I put out last year. And then I did 2 singles that were kind of written around the same time that I started tweaking Permanently Delete material. So they were kind of similar, but even more dialed into the synth end. That was Weaponized Atrophy and Terms and Conditions. And they were like 2 supplementary singles that came out like a month after I put the EP out. And that kind of was like, those 2 singles, I was like, right, that in my mind is kind of where I envisage this to be leading. So that's it. That's what I want to be doing. And so that was kind of like set the tone for the material that became Simulacrum and Stimuli. And
I would say now it's pretty different. Like your debut sounds a lot different from, well, not a lot, but a lot of the tracks are leaning in a different direction, more synth oriented, less guitar driven, because those other ones were more working around the guitar, it feels like, and your debut album, it seems like everything's working more around the synths. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, it's like, there's always going to be a skeletal structure of riffs and beats somewhere in there, but because I've kind of grown up with a couple of musical mentors who showed me different ways of approaching composition and structure. And like I actually talked about this last week with the Heaviest guys on their podcast. I've got this guy in Wellington, Ant Donaldson, he's like 60 something, and he's an incredible drummer, and he's got a long pedigree here of being involved in many different types of music as a drummer, and teaches up at the jazz school and stuff. But he also really loves like Meshuggah, and specifically the Frederick Thorndahl solo album Soul Niger Within, or Special Defects it's often called. If you've never heard that, that's like a jazz. Really? Oh my god! So it's a jazz metal opus, pretty much, that came out in '97, and it's
Did you
it's
need to send me the
incredible.
link to that? That sounds dope.
Oh, dude, fucking hell. I'm surprised you haven't heard it. I'll definitely send you the link. It's incredible, but it's like quite different to Meshuggah. It's similar in different ways, but he's got another drummer from Morgan Agren who has drummed for Zappa and a whole bunch of other people. Really proggy, really different. Anyway, Ant Donaldson, my drum mentor, would take Soul Niger Within the album up to his students and do seminars on this album to his, like, jazz pre-graduates, whatever. So he was quite open-minded like that, and he was the one that showed me. Like, he had a whole bunch of groups he would play around town live with, and he would rope me in as a secondary drummer, like a backup percussionist, and me and him would like create interlocking drum rhythms over like tuba and all this weird stuff that in these different groups. But when we would compose and rehearse, he would have the system where he would like put up a big thing on the wall, a big piece of paper or whiteboard or whatever, and he would draw the maps. So instead of like having traditional notation and shit, he would have these weird diagrammatic looking scribbles that accurately represented what music was doing here and what it would go into and that kind of thing. And so very visual. Trippy. Yeah, very, very visual. And like, I don't know music training. I don't know a scale to save myself. I've kind of worked everything out by kind of,
You're self-taught.
But not even properly taught. I'm just kind of interpreted things and gone, okay, well, this works and that doesn't, and trial and error. And I'm not scholastically or theory trained in any way. But so this presentation, or this way of composing music that he showed me was, the word's completely gone, but that appealed to me, or appealed to my sensibility about music and how to make it at the time. So, because I'm a visual person, so in terms of tension and release and pacing and all of this stuff that goes into writing a track and then subsequently arranging a live set or an album or whatever, or a collection of songs, that his way of writing stuff kind of helped me write stuff in a way that felt like it ticked all the right boxes for what a song or a track should sound like as it progresses from top to bottom. And so with the ornithologist stuff, and also with Infinite Hex, you probably notice there's like, it changes very fast. And the way I've kind of referred to this is like channel surfing. Like, you get a bit of this and then it goes into this bit and then into that bit, but I'm trying to have like intense bits and then bits where it's like it doesn't even make sense to the bit that came before, but there might still be some sense of a flow, trying to just maintain some semblance of continuity, even though bits to and from might be quite disparate in tone or feeling or whatever. So,
yeah, kind of schizophrenic sounding.
Right. But I mean, when you grow up in the MySpace era, listening to stuff like Cephalic Carnage and
That's
Red
what you're going
Chord
for.
and Psyopus, all that stuff. It's kind of like it's burned into the DNA now. You know what? Fucking 15 years later, I can't unravel it.
Right.
So
I don't want you to unravel it either because it's fucking.
cheers, bro.
So you have an explanation on your Bandcamp about your process. Something about like weird noises being generated, and then you somehow put I don't even know the words I'm looking for now. I wish I had the explanation up in front of me of like how you built your songs with like weird randomization and stuff. Can you explain that to me? Like I'm 4 years old.
What you're talking about? Yeah. Okay. So this is not what you're referring to. Is I think I mentioned about the sample and hold function, which
That's it. Yes.
Right. So in synthesizers in general, they're an analog synthesis. You've got, you're using a control voltage to manipulate a signal path or sound via a signal path. The way I describe it on the in that blurb is basically sample and hold. It will take a sample of a particular sound, or it takes a sample of noise actually. And if you think about like when you like a TV static is white noise, and what white noise is it's like all of. Well, sorry, no, I'm getting away from what I'm trying to say. If you think of white light is all of the colors together, but it just looks like white light to us, right? But once you put filters on it, you filter out and you get the different colors in the visible spectrum. Same with sort of noise and sound. In analog format, what a sample and hold does, it'll read white noise and it'll take a snapshot, and that's the sample bit, which will have a singular value. And that will be interpreted by the oscillator, which is the sound generating part of the synthesizer, and turn it into a tone. And then with a gate signal, it's like the clocking mechanism, because we think about repeating clocks. That's the gate tells it to resample at a different rate. So what you end up with is kind of like, if I feed it white noise and I've got a clock like this, then the oscillator will just be picking random values out of the noise, so it might end up with an arbitrary tones like that are available within the full range of the oscillator's capability, right? Am I making sense?
Yeah. Far? Yeah, it's weird as hell, but yeah.
And then you can do other shit like feed that into a quantizer, which will squash those random values into more musical scales. But I don't like musical, well, I do like musical scales, but I like the atonality and the quirkiness of unfiltered sample and hold sound, which is just repetitive blasts of randomized notes. But not just notes, you can also use sample and hold to open and close a filter. Like, so a filter on a synthesizer might change the tone from like, might go, oh, so it's like an opening and closing. You might interpret it as the treble on something like that, but it's basically filtering out certain things. And you can align the sample and hold with a filter to it will randomly open and close the filter to different values. So it's all about values and this random thing.
That's so weird, man. So that's like what you're doing with all those cables and like those weird synths and stuff. I've seen those in like movies in like the 70s and 80s, but I've never seen somebody actually working them before. It's so weird for me to see that.
There's a joke I saw very recently about like, people who are into modular synth explaining modular synth to other people, and how it just seems like this thing that is too complex. But like I said to the guys on the podcast last week I was on, it's like really is not that much different to dudes that have these gigantic pedal boards for their guitars, right?
Yeah,
Delays, filters, distortion, all of the same kind of shit going on. It's just with modular and the whole control voltage thing, you can shape sound with a bit more fidelity than you can with like guitar pedals and stuff, and do more things with like rhythm orientated shit. I mean, there's some cool rhythmic pedals out there and delays and stuff. I definitely don't.
How did you get into all this, man? Like, this has to be like, I feel like this is jumping the shark, right? Like, this is diving into something so weird, and like, I'm sure these things aren't cheap. So what made you think, you know what, I'm gonna buy this expensive synth thing with all the weird holes I could put cables in? Like, so what
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you. Okay, they're not cheap, and they are cheap, and the thing is, everyone knows that they sort of came about in popular culture in the 60s and 70s with prog bands and whatnot and all the rest of it. And so we're familiar with the vintage imagery of walls of long-haired dudes and paisley shirts, fucking, all that kind of Yes and Electric Light Orchestra or Emerson, Lake Palmer, all that kind of stuff, right? And then it petered out through the 80s as the market for synthesizers grew and tended more towards the home sellable keyboard, like the DX7 and the Korgs and the Rolands and all that sort of stuff, which are obviously a lot more user-friendly than a giant wall of knobs and blah, blah. And most of these synths were for a home user market, so they were a lot of the modular-based stuff distilled down or kind of turned into presets or whatever, so that little Timmy, 5-year-old Timmy, could fucking make sense of it as much as the next guy, right? But it was probably, I think, about the late 80s, early 90s. There was a bunch of people there's a dude in Germany, Dieter Dopfer, who decided to start a company making and selling these modules again in a smaller marketable format. And so he kind of kicked off that, and there was still like a DIY community. Like you think about like chiptune or what do they call it? People that hack old toy synths to make weird noise stuff out of them, right?
Yeah.
What do they call it? Chip bashing, or I can't remember what you call it exactly, but there's like the home electronic DIY enthusiast kind of part of the synth community who would take stuff and mash it up and mangle it and make it do things it wasn't supposed to. And in essence, that was a big backbone of the resurgence of modular in the 90s, modular synths and stuff. And so suddenly you got, because all of these parts you can buy for cheap as fuck down at your local Mouser or JCar or electronic parts stuff, so stores or whatever. So you have in this they call it the SDIY community, which is just synth DIY, and there's a lot of people that still do it. It's still a growing thing, and people can create little systems. They call them skiffs that might be 3 or 4 modules long that don't look much bigger than a small pedal board, up to the big wall of synth stuff if they want. And that's the beautiful thing. It's modular. So even if you're not a synth DIY guy or whatever, you're buying modular products, you don't have to buy it all at once. I certainly didn't. When I was in Australia, when I first started getting into the modular stuff, I saw something on a forum that was like literally 4 modules big. It was in this cute little box, and I was like, that looks cool. I want to do something like that. And it was literally just an oscillator, a filter, and a VCA. And so this is the problem, though. And like people who have pedal boards know the vibe. As soon as you've got the things, you need to get more things. And then suddenly there's not enough things. And then suddenly you have no friends and you don't sleep and you have a giant wall of things.
The things are your friends now, man.
Right. But, there's a big, well, now that we're we're well into the resurgence. It's been 20 years since the wave of commercial modular stuff, building in tandem with the DIY community. There's there's so many options now for anyone getting into modular that there does become quite a big option paralysis part of it. And this is a big problem in modular as well. You see a lot of the newbies come in, and if they've got money, they'll just buy up all this stuff, and then they don't know what to fucking do with it. Or, the way I did it, I got a couple of modules at a time, and I slowly accrued a system that I wanted for a specific purpose. I knew kind of what I wanted to do with that stuff. I know the kind of sounds that I wanted to pull out of it, the kinds of music that I wanted, synth tones that I wanted to make. And a lot of people that come into modular for the first time, they're just maybe enamored by the weirdness of the sound in general, and they don't really have a specific intention. So they might end up buying 4 or 5 modules that they'll maybe sell on or don't connect with because they thought it was going to be cool, but it didn't turn out to do the thing that they wanted it to do. And this is a big trial and error process of the modular thing, because it's so compartmentalized. There's so many different kinds of little modules. There's sound modules, there's effect modules, there's utility modules that do different things, like the logic and the sample and hold stuff, that act on time in cool ways. And that was the big thing for me. Like, that's what really hooked me into modular, was more the rhythmic stuff than the sounds to begin with, because with sequences and clock dividers and logic functions, I could emulate tricky and weird shit that I would be trying to do on a drum kit anyway, but get completely different sounding but equally as awesome results of like odd timing stuff. Because you can set a 5-step sequence against a 7-step sequence, and then have them pinging off each other with different sounds, and it's quite rhythmic. It's always been like a rhythmic thing for me. And it wasn't until later on that I really dug into the tone thing and started to get more out of the sonic capabilities of a modular system.
Dude, that's so weird, man. Weird. So how do you build up a song then? You just like have these things randomly like pinging off of each other, and then you take all that stuff, and then how do you turn that into a song?
Because it's just me most of the time, there's a couple of ways to approach it, because the music isn't linear. Before I said, there's the drum and riff based stuff, the traditional band sounding stuff. So that might come from just a riff that I like, or a pattern that, okay, like you'd workshop with a band in a room, you try the different iterations of the riff, or maybe we'll add a note here or something, or maybe we'll go, well, this bit sounds cool, but maybe we'll invert it here or truncate that bar there, and that will take us into a bridge bit. So there's that standard way of structuring and writing like the body of the classic guitar, bass, drums sort of trident block of sound. And I'm really good at putting those together, but then I end up with all these disparate chunks of things that maybe don't go together. And so I think half of the thing with this project was finding a way to smoosh all those bits together, and the synth really helps there. And that's the other way of doing it, of creating, where I'll look to the synth first, and maybe there's a cool sequence that I've got going, set up, or that a module might pump out some random weirdo little phrases that I might be able to catch and loop, and maybe that sets the tone for adding guitars on top of that. And then once I've got the body or skeletal body of a piece down, then it's the same thing. It's like, where does it go to from there? Where do I imagine this coming from previously? And I'm trying to think on a continuum, or how that would sound relatively placed on a collection of songs or an album or something like that. That helps me sort of put a track together. And then once that chunk of guitar riff drum stuff is there, then I can look at what sound effects and one shots that I can pull out of the system, out of the modular too, and also the atmospheric beds and pads and sort of like, you know, the background stuff that is half of the oeuvre of this project. I think is like, you know, because a lot of the modular stuff can almost be more nasty than what I can get out of a 100-watt guitar rig with fucking like evil pedals in front of it. There's like, they're not the same, but then the grittiness can be quite similar. So I feel like they complement each other at times. But then also like, for example, we talked about this last week on the new Fawn Limbs album, that the end of that track, Noose Gestures, which is just Lee doing the weird off, it's not even on a meter, almost kind of drumming under this fucking brooding bed of like, it's just like a synth pad or something, but it's so ominous and evil sounding, but it's also in the background and kind of sitting really comfortably with everything. So that really succinct use of an atmospheric timbre that kind of sits in above or behind the rhythmic chunks of guitars and drums and stuff. I really like that, and I can pull a lot of different sort of qualities out of the sound qualities out of the modular that do that, have that component I can add into the track.
That's interesting. Yeah. Are there other like projects, like metal projects, that do this the way that you do it, or do you feel like you're kind of on an island?
I guess so. I mean, I'm not the first person to do this stuff. I don't really think. Maybe in this way, probably not. You know, there's like always going to be someone on some other continent buried in their bedroom making weird music that we've never heard before that might be like this or whatever. The fact that
I can't say I've ever heard anybody that has stuff that sounds quite like that.
Well, fuck. I mean, I never heard Focusrites until a few.
Weird, yeah.
You know, they've got a very unique approach to it going on. I mean, think back to when Psyopus came out, or even going back further, think back to when the first Mr. Bungle album dropped and shit. People were like, huh? What the fuck is this? Kind of, you know, conventional.
Well, sure. So, like,
we're used to at the time.
They're more like guitar driven, though. Like, you have like a very heavy, like weird synth aspect to it. It's not even more. It's not even like a Nintendo core where it's like kind of like a happy synth going along with it, or like more rhythm based like synth and stuff like that. You got some weird shit, man. Like the beginning of what's this song? Tin Costan, the one you did the video for.
Oh yeah,
that's so freaking weird, man. So like, I don't know. I've never heard of a band like manipulating synth the way that you have. So I thought it was really interesting to figure out how that works.
I think you go and you look at stuff that's kind of, I'm going to struggle, but like, you know, even Horse the Band and those Nintendo course kind of bands that love the 8-bit chiptune video game sounds, right? It's all just video game sounds. And what do those video games use? They use little mini oscillator chips and even all the you know, all the 8-bit sounding stuff is like analog sound. It's like analog synth sounds, and those they're really, once you put them through compression and all the rest, they're really fucking gnarly. I love how on a surface and nostalgic cultural level, people identify with 80s synth sounds, and this, like, they put it in a box in their mind that's like, it's quite nice, and, or, you know, it's nostalgic more than it is like weird and electronic. But when you actually listen to a lot of these old 80s game sounds and stuff, they're really quite brutal. And especially if you like put them through some distortion or compress the fuck out of them, and then they get really brutal. And that's what we like. That's what I like.
Okay.
But you know, it's kind of, it's those sounds are kind of hidden in plain sight, I think, in terms of how nasty they can or weird they can actually be. It's just through the lens of time, looking back on that culture where they first emerged, people kind of associate them with video games and like
Having fun and
fun stuff and like not evil or weird shit, but they can totally go there.
So you've got one song that has vocals on it. Why do you have just one?
There was supposed to be more. Okay, so this project is still kind of. I've had an EP out, a couple of singles, now the album, but I'm still kind of working out how to get it to where I want it. And
trying to find your footing still.
Yeah, and I cannot scream or sing to save myself. I've made damn sure I could play drums and bass and guitar and synth, but I've got no vocal capabilities whatsoever. So one of the things I really like about this project is I can focus on making the nuts and bolts of the music, and then the intention was always to to collaborate with people on the vocal and on the art and getting that kind of content stuff down, which is why I'm an artist, but I didn't want to do my own artwork for this or get someone else whose artwork I like to do the cover art. And again, with the video stuff, I can edit together a basic video, but I'd just rather pick someone whose stuff I liked to do the video for Synchros 10, which was Michael Tony's amazing 3D stuff, which was sick. But again, that's like how I like to make this a collaborative project, because the rest of the time it's just me in my cave micromanaging all the sound and stuff. But so Callum, who is on Syncos 10, his main band is Spook the Horses, and they're like more heavy post-rock, think Cult of Luna, think Breach,
I'm pretty sure a guy from Blindfolded and Led to the Woods actually and you still need to
he would have, yeah. They're definitely intense, heavy post-rock, and they're really good at what they're doing. Their last couple of albums came out on Pelagic Records, which is the Ocean guy, Robin Stapp's label. So they're doing really good things, and they're doing Arctangent and all that kind of stuff. But like Callum's such a good cunt and such a dude, and he's like a generation younger than me. So his bands were supporting my band when we were doing our thing, and he's always kind of been there. And now we're a bit older, and he's kind of like the go-to guest vocalist guy in New Zealand for like heavy shit. He's like, well, we need someone to do some screams. And, oh, call Callum. Callum will do it. And Callum, yeah, bro, I'll do it. But so Callum's on that track also because I think his stuff sat really well with that track in particular.
What happened with the other people then? Why aren't these songs?
It just came down to, in the end, I'd stepped out the entire album procession, like the track order in my door and stuff, and I had all the vocal bits down below. There's like 3 other people who'd given me stuff to do vocals with. And like I'd kind of said to all of these guys, I don't know how I'm going to use it. I'm probably going to treat it more like a sample thing rather than a classic. Don't necessarily give me verse, chorus stuff. Just scream and yell, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing, because I'm probably going to chop it up like I do the rest of everything else to assemble it. And I kind of got what I was given in the end. And when it came to arranging stuff, I was arranging the track order at the same time, and it just turned out that some of the stuff was really good, but didn't quite sit well. Like the vocal stuff that was given to me was really good, but didn't quite sit how I wanted it to in the tracks. And it became apparent to me then, okay, well, fuck it. They've given me this stuff now. I'll just keep this on file so that I can maybe write future tracks to this stuff, because working the other way didn't quite work so well with that. So there was one other track that I gave to the Big Money Cybergrind compilation, Incorrect Password. That's got Jeff Lazar and Callum on it. and that's like, and still it's instrumental. I left it as instrumental on the actual album, so that it was a different version of it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about this actually.
Yeah, so but
why did you just leave it as an instrumental? Why didn't you do like the full version?
I just thought it'd be like, well, they kind of come out at a similar period, so I just thought, well, okay, it's turned out now that there's only actually one vocal track on the album, so let's leave the rest of it so that it's more focused on the music, I guess. And then the Big Money Cybergrind comps got the vocal version as an alternative mix or whatever you want to call that. I don't know, I'm kind of making this shit up as I go along with how I'm doing stuff, and I haven't released music for a long time, and so like an album, and I've just become a hermit and so focused on making the stuff I forget. Oh, you got to do stuff in a certain order and a certain way, and yeah. So a lot of the attributes around the release of this weren't as smooth as I wanted them to go, but or could have been pre-planned a little better. For example, Spotify they release like in a couple of days, even though the Bandcamp came out like a week ago. So I didn't get all my ducks. Sorry to use the word ducks. I know it's a trigger point for you. I didn't get all my ducks in a row quite perfectly, but I'm still at peace with the fact that this is my first album properly of this stuff. So it's kind of warts and all, and including the rollout. And another piece of information that I should share that's kind of new and exciting is that I think I've found someone to do this stuff, collaborate with, who's a more than capable drummer and local to me, and is also keen as fuck to do stuff. So
fucking dope.
Looking forward, I'm going to be like the difference between the EP and this album. Like you said, there's a lot more synth and different sounding stuff. So I like the idea that I can keep Infinite Hex stylistically open, and that includes how the stuff will play out in a live context, which I'm trying to get to a point where I'm comfortable enough to make happen. And so this guy, this drummer, coming into the fold's going to help with that. And then also the vocal thing, maybe I'll actually get a vocalist, or maybe Callum's just going to become the Infinite X vocalist.
That would be sick.
If I ask him nicely.
So
he'll probably say, yeah.
Having like a real drummer and stuff, does that make you like think about how you like, because I know a lot of bands that are electronically based, like my shit, for example, like I don't think a fucking drummer could play the stuff that I programmed.
Right.
Yes. Does that make you think like differently about how you program things, having like a real person trying to pull it off?
It's inception for me, because I spent 25 to 30 years of my life drumming, because I'm an old guy. Like I'm 45 now, right? I started drumming 15 or whatnot, probably a little bit before
I would not have
but
guessed that age for you, by the way. Like you do not look like you're 40. Anyway, go on.
Oh, thanks, bro. Yes, my youthful complexion. But I'm actually going bald. Yes, that's right. But yeah, I'm a drummer. And there's no drums of me playing drums on this album. And it's like, what the fuck, Otis? But this was the whole.
Ask you that too.
This was the whole thing with getting into modular and stuff, is that there is and there isn't a way to incorporate the two. And I don't have, like, I've got an E kit, I don't know if you can see it there.
No, I can. Yeah, it looks good.
But I haven't played like a proper drum kit in a couple of years now, or had one to play on. So the facilitation to meld proper drums with this stuff is kind of, the logistics aren't really there. And that's kind of why I've been leaning into more of the program stuff. And like I use, the Kurt Ballou Room Sound drum package.
A lot of people like that one, yeah.
Because it's very natural sounding, but I can also, you can tweak it, and it like takes pedals really nicely. You can affect the sounds really nicely, but like, so what I'm trying to say is like, friends of mine who are mixers and stuff have told me about the Dr. Octopus scenario, which is they get they get given music by people that have programmed the drums that are maybe not drummers, and they don't understand that the bit you've just programmed, a real human would need 8 limbs to actually do that. And that, but when you're doing stuff like Cybergrind or whatever, that doesn't matter. It's more to the point that
Yeah.
But I'm trapped between these two worlds of like real drums and then stupid unplayable drums, and I'm trying to. There's a bit of both on this album, and this I've definitely a lot of it I have programmed it as I would play it on an E-kit, and I can play a lot of that stuff. There's stuff that I can't play, but definitely looking forward to the next bunch of material. Like I'm going to be writing stuff and giving it to this drummer guy, and he's like me. He's like he's all over the blast stuff, and also traditionally trained, so I can give him stuff and he'll learn it to the T, more or less. But I will be pulling back from the 30-second note kicks and stuff like that, so that it's a little bit more. I don't know. So yeah,
You'll be like the guy from Whiplash, just constantly pushing him till his hands start.
Oh, someone linked me a video the other day. I'm not going to remember the guy's name. Joshua, I think he's from Die Choking. Have you seen that band, Die Choking?
I've heard of them. I don't think I've seen. I
watched a YouTube of the drummer, and holy shit, he's almost a robot. He's like got this, and he's like mostly single kick as well. But just the combination of his foot, his blast and foot and snare is just like relentless. It's great. But when you're programming drums, it gets, especially blast beat stuff, it gets busy real quick, and then you're going to put riffs on it and then more sounds, and everything gets filled up really quickly. So I found that in translating some of the shit that I've written, trying to get on a kit and play it, that I have kind of lessened some of the intensity in parts, but in doing so it kind of sounds bigger than the program stuff. So I think the next release will definitely have still have blasts and shit on it, and get that throbbing staccato attack thing, but maybe with a little bit more humanized approach to.
Well, to that end, like I was saying, your album is kind of moving away from like what your EP was and the 2 singles afterwards, because you got like what is that, like more, not hip hop sound, but like ambience, the wrong word too, but you know what I'm saying, more of like groovy parts, like I forget the name of the song, but it's like Where Brain Cells Go to Die, I think is the name of it.
Right.
Yeah, where it was a lot more chill and such. Like, is that something you're trying to like incorporate into more like in the next material?
Yeah, so that one in particular is definitely, that's what you call that was basically what I call a generative patch. And a patch is just like the way that you've got your synth patched up, right? But with generative music, there's a whole rabbit hole of this out there. You can use the functions in the synth to set up, basically get it all patched up, and then step back and kind of it doesn't repeat itself. Is why it's called generative. That one bit will feed into the other, which will trigger another bit. And it's sort of like a domino thing with sound, where you just start it and then it will create a life of its own.
So weird.
According to the parameters that you've set up, right? So with that track, Where Brain Cells Go to Die, that was exactly that. I spent a couple of days kind of keying things up. So I had a couple of drum modules in there that were there's a lot of control voltage sweeping the either the filters or the pitch, so that no 2 to 5 seconds of music sound the same, even though some of the same kinds of sounds might pop up, but also trying to sculpt it in a way where it is almost like a soundtrack piece of music that's very background. So it is inobtrusive, but still slightly eventful. And it doesn't become, like just like a quantized bunch of loops, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. It does the opposite thing. So no phrase is the same, but you're trying to get it to reshape itself or evolve over the course of the track's like 8 minutes. And I put there was a little bit of overdubs of like that foghorn that comes in, like kind of drone elements like that, just to give it more, tension and release for over the course of the 8 minutes. So there's that kind of stuff on the down end, and then tracks like Jacob's Escalator, which is just like that distorted drum, boom, 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 and it's got some simple melodic reverbed out guitar in the background. That kind of stuff also is just trying to find a balance between the full blasting barrage heavy riff shit and to give breathing spaces in the course of listening to the music, so that there's like, it'll lighten you up for a little bit before it drops you down into something else, and you've got that the peaks and troughs. Yeah, and it's keeps it interesting.
Echo Beauty Terror in chat says it's like an inorganic thing, trying to make life in a lab.
Yes.
So you're a mad scientist making your Frankenstein. It's great.
That's it. That's actually really good. I haven't thought about that. It's definitely a Frankenstein.
So how do you do something like that live, or it's like making this thing that's not going to come out the same way every time? Are you planning on like playing a backing track that's got all that stuff on it, or how's that?
So with Ornithologist, we basically just had the drums and supplementary atmospheric stuff smooshed into tracks that we would load into an SP404, and then we would play guitars over top. Hit play. Tick, 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 nah, nah, nah.
So that's what you plan on doing?
Well, my original plan before this drummer turned up was to sculpt like a 20-minute set that would maybe start with a bit of that, and then would fade out into, I would have the modular set up, and of course, because of there would be some laptop action, so there might be some bits where I would hit spacebar and it would set off a rhythmic passage that I could then do stuff over with the guitar or the synth, or do some patching, and then
so like improvisation.
There would be a lot of improvisation to it in
crazy.
that way, just because I think like in my drumming, I love like even when I'm not making music, I love just like getting a stupid sequence going on in my headphones that I can just then shed or freestyle over. And I kind of like doing that just as an exercise to myself to keep my drumming up. But I think that approach can also be used really well and if it's peppered in between structured segments of a collection of material that might be a set or whatever. So that was always going to be a thing where maybe I take the E-kit up on stage and I set a sequence going, and then I just do some like not soloing, but more like counterpoint drumming to some of this modular stuff. Or conversely, I set the modular doing some drum module-based rhythmic stuff, and then I can do counterpoint or atmospheric guitar stuff over it, or maybe bring in a little pattern that sits over that. And then, this was all kind of keyed around a lot of like triggering and like set this piece going here, and then maybe 5 minutes later that will morph into this bit. And so I'm still going to do that, but I think now that there's going to be a live drumming component, it's going to free me up to do more riff-based stuff, and we can get more of the actual heavy, chunky shit happening in terms of a ebb and flow of a short set.
That sounds like it'd be crazy to. I really hope that this
Well,
stuff comes together for you.
Same. I don't think it'll be too much of a different stretch from what the ornithologist thing was. I'm not going to be wearing a mask or anything, but like,
Come on, man,
in
why
terms
not?
of
Wear a mask.
it's too fucking hard, man. My eyesight's already starting to go, so it's hard enough seeing through that thing. But definitely having the at least at minimum the guitar and drumming component there makes instantly already takes it out. How do I put it? Less in the guy on stage twiddling knobs thing, and more into a live performance band kind of thing, which is what I would want for this project anyway. It's just that my problem has always been like not being able to find the right guitarist so that I could drum this stuff, or not being able to find the right drummer so that I could guitar this stuff, because it's also idiosyncratic. But now that I've found this drummer, it's like, oh, cool. It's like, whew, maybe now I can actually get this stuff into more of a traditional performance, band performance kind of thing, and still have the synth stuff in there, and still do some of the improv shit and the knob twiddling, but all of this taking place over like, you know, a 20-minute set. Because like, who wants to listen to this shit for more than 20 minutes? You know.
So let's talk a little bit about
plan.
recording. I'm sure that this is the kind of stuff where you have to record it as you write. Is there like a different way you do it, or is that about right?
It's just me, and my studio is literally just like a laptop, a little bit of outboard, the modular. I've got a few different guitars there. Everything like sounds different. I have terrible drummer's ears, so my treble response is fucked, and I often have to give mixes to other friends who still have the hearing to tell me what's fucked about it and whatnot. But so you'll notice through the course of listening to the album, even the guitar sounds alone sound different from track to track, and that's, you know, the way that I write. I piece stuff together. It's very piecemeal because it's just me, right? And a lot of it's in the box or just overdubbing until I got the track sounding like the piece of music I want it to sound like. Though I've been in bands before where it's all about learn and rehearse this bit to go into the studio to get it right the first time and all that sort of stuff. That's not the way this kind of project started out. So there's a very disparate sound and from track to track production wise and tonality wise. I kind of like that about it, because that's more of like this track in itself could be from a different origin or sample than this track, but the other side of me wants to homogenize at least the quality of the drums, guitar,
Right,
bass
make it
stuff,
sound like it's coming from like the same source.
Right, and more or less I've used the same amp and stuff, but I've had different pedals and I've put them in the different pickups. I got this aluminium neck guitar, which is really hard to record with, but is really nice because the top end is so harsh, and then I'm probably overcompensating because all my tops and my hearing's gone. So the guitars sound different one day to the next, let alone one track to the next for me. But I think, yeah, the next bunch of... Now we've got a drummer who's willing to work with me. It's like maybe the next bunch of stuff I'll actually book out a studio and do it that way for the next EP or something, and see how that goes.
So let's talk about artwork. You were saying, so you are an artist yourself, but you had someone else do the art for like your album and the video and stuff.
Yeah.
So I imagine you paid him and stuff. Why not just make one yourself so you don't have to be out a couple $100 or whatever?
Okay. It's primarily down to the fact that I can't be fucked with the mental real estate that it would chew up when I could be putting that into the music. And like this project, like I said, I micromanage it. It's just me. I micromanaged it. I'm anally retentive about getting the sounds right.
That makes me think you'd want to be the same way about the art, though.
I'm hyper aware that that the style of art that I do and the way that I approach doing art, I would just end up fucking churning my brain inside out trying to get the right thing. And that
I don't know, man. That thing
never
behind
even
you looks
happen.
fucking sick, dude. Like,
Oh yeah, this is. I don't know if you can see.
that looks so dope, man. Like, that could have worked.
That's a painting, yeah. But I mean, like, I've been working on this for 2 years.
Jesus
Which
Christ.
is twice as long as I worked on the Infinite Hex album. So it's like, I don't want to be in a position where this is the thing. I like that I can use the art angle as a way to collaborate with people and get someone whose artwork I like to be the face of the album. And so for this album, Pa Olafsson's stuff is incredible. And,
well, we got it up on screen now. You want to describe what's going on?
Right. So Pa's done a bunch. He's known for his metal covers, album cover art, right? And he did the Faceless, Planetary Duality.
Oh, okay.
He's done like a bunch of metal stuff. It's all quite cinematic and got that sci-fi cosmic horror thing going on. Which
and then he heard
really
your stuff and was like, "What the fuck is this?"
No, I just hit him up. I would never have expected him to have heard of this one random dude in his bedroom.
No, yeah, but then you gave him the music, I would imagine, before like he started working.
Well, I didn't.
Like, what the fuck?
No, I didn't. I didn't give him the music at all. I think I might have sent him a link, but I basically said, dude, I love your art. I had a really loose idea for what I wanted, which was basically just, I said, like, I make like metal with electronic modular stuff. So what I want is a bunch of people plugged into this fucking like alien computer with wires and stuff on it. That's basically all I said, and said, just go for it because I love your shit. I don't know, you can shit something out and I'll love it. So just do that. And he did that, and I didn't ask for any changes. It was fucking perfect. It was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Cool.
It is dope as shit.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then when we did the Sinkostan video with Michael, like I showed Michael the cover art, and then Michael's like took his sense impression of Pa's artwork and made a character in the animation, which is that big thing with all the people attached to the. You'll see it in the video.
I'm going to show the video in a second. I just wanted to ask you. You changed your logo for this one. Did the dude that did the I forgot his name already. The guy that did the cover. Did he also do this new logo for you?
Nope. No, I just whipped up the logo real quick.
I think this looks a lot better than the old man. Like, this fits you so good. I really like this new one that you got. It's so good.
Yeah. I think when I started out, I just wanted like a classic splatter logo, and like I really like that logo. There's Hunter Durr, who was now formerly the singer of Sleep Sculptor. Like he has his Ritual Season Media thing, and he did a bunch of stuff, and I was like, fuck it, do me a logo, and I'll pay you for it. And he came up with that, and it's like, that's sick, cool. But it was quite, it's boxy and squarish, and I thought for this album I'm going to have like, I don't want a logo competing for this awesome fucking artwork that I'm paying this dude to do. So I need to have a long one that can just sit there and let the artwork
really freaking good, dude. Dude, so, I want a shirt with like the album artwork on it and like that logo just across the top.
There's merch. So there's merch coming. Now that I got like the Sublimate printer guy in the States, I'll be able to get some. There's stuff coming up on the. For merch real soon.
Hell yeah.
And we're going to be doing big tapestry, wall hanging,
wall flags.
What do you call them? Flags kind of stuff of the album cover art as well. So,
yeah. So we got the music up. Alrighty. So, what is happening here, man? Did you give this guy any direction at all, or did he just like go ham with it?
He went ham. I didn't give him too much direction either. Like I saw some of his animation stuff on a group online. It was just like a little 15-20 second reel of this gloopy body horror piece of plasma cruising around. I was like, fuck, that's sick. And it had that kind of like cool 3D world thing going on. Like, the Igor video, that they do that really well in that. But like Michael's stuff was kind of like I think he hasn't been doing it that long. So it's amazing for how long he's been doing it, but it still had this real rough around the edges look to it, which I love. And I was like, fuck, can you do me a video? It's probably only going to be 60 to 90 seconds. It ended up being longer in the end, but he smashed it. It has a ebb and flow to it. And I kind of like just gave him free rein, let him go through it. And
that's crazy, dude. It's such a big production too. It's so good. Oh my god. I love music videos when they're not just like performance vids or whatever. Like they have like an actual kind of storyline going along with it. So
who wants to look at the fucking band anyway, bro?
Exactly, right? Yeah,
no. But I think like this music is definitely like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Stand there and play guitar, whatever. I like sci-fi and I like weird shit, and I think the music kind of imbues a bit of that in it. So why wouldn't I get someone to do a fucked up animation for it or something like that? Michael's stuff was just perfect. So it's like, especially, I think at the start I just kind of said to him, I love the body horror thing that you've got going on with this gloopy plasma shit. Like, create some kind of storyboard around that and just go for it. And he did that really well.
Wait, so is Michael from Black Matter Device? Because Chad is telling me
Correct.
to shut up. Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alrighty. They're saying shout out Black Matter Device. Black Matter Device 3 win. Dude, I agree. Like, when is that happening? Definitely
Yeah.
So we have a question here to ask everybody. I'm sure you know what I'm going to ask. What do you put on your hot dogs?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just straight up, just bread and a dog.
I'm just raw dogging.
Raw dog in the hot dog. Okay.
I do not. I really don't like ketchup or tomato sauce on anything.
I agree with you with the ketchup, man. That's garbage.
Mustard's like completely an American thing, but I like to imbibe the sausageness, 100% of the sausageness when I'm of the dog. Okay. It's got to be 100% dog. I don't need any distractions with any weird wet stuff.
We got Christian in the chat. He agrees
a good dog will have its own juices, A
good dog will have its own juices. I like it. Void Dweller's in the chat. He's asking, what's your favorite video game?
Oh, shit. See, like, I kind of gave up on video games a long time ago. But last year, my wife got sick and was bedridden for a time. And so we bought a PlayStation and we got really into Borderlands, which was cool. But prior to that, I had like PlayStation 1 was the last time I checked on that stuff. And I was all about like Tomb Raider and Colin McRae Rally and stuff like that. But like, since growing up, or just getting older and being married and then trying to live this life in this very tough times that we're in. I don't have a lot of time to, because I'm a full-time artist now, so I'm working every day and then trying to fit this music stuff in between, and times for games and stuff like that are few and far between, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't really play too many video games. I recently got into Diablo 2, though. Like, I needed something to get my mind. I'm trying to stop smoking cigarettes. I need something to get my mind off of that. So I've been diving really deep into that.
You're doing, you're day 3 or something now, right?
Something like that. 4, I think.
Yeah.
But it seems to be working. I'm doing the gum. You can see me chewing and stuff.
Just keep the distractions coming. It's all
exactly right.
It's all about distracting your brain,
Right.
It's hard, and hanging around with other people that smoke is the hard one. So minimize that. Good. I'll wish the best of luck to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So besides playing live, what's in the future for Infinite Hex? Just working on new material, gonna put that stuff out, and
there's other stuff there that could have ended up on the album had I not just wanted to get it out and keep things moving. I mean, like I said, the original Infinite Hex EP was sitting there waiting for the other guy to participate in it before it actually became Infinite Hex. For like 4 years, I sat on that. And so now that I've got into like a year and a half now of doing stuff and then putting it out, I just kind of want to keep the momentum going. And so there's stuff there that's kind of half written. And now I'm probably with the drummer guy, I'm going to be kind of rekeying that so that maybe it'll have not programmed stuff and have actual recorded drums by him on it. And I also want to get more of that weird atmospheric shit in there. Like, there's not going to be any less blasty, riffy stuff. That's always part of the DNA of when I pick up a guitar, just like, that's the way I play. So, and that's always going to be there. But just, I want to keep pulling that envelope open and seeing what other styles I can smoosh in there that might work. Because this whole thing is like, it's fun for me. It's an experiment for me. It's like a bit of a wank for me. Like, it's in terms of, you know, I'm just doing all the shit that I like, and I'm not trying to. A lot of this stuff's probably going to go over people's heads, or they're going to go, it's fucking whack, bro, or whatever. But I'm making the music that I want to make, so that's
hell yeah, man. People are either gonna love it or they're gonna hate it. You know, that's actually the best kind of music, dude. Like, you get the best reactions from people like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and hopefully you're trying to do something new. Like, I think a lot of people say, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's been done. But I think a quote unquote originality hopefully comes out of the successful smooshing of things together that are then presented in a way that hasn't been seen before. I'm not necessarily convinced I'm the first to be doing stuff like this. I don't think I am by any stretch, but maybe the way that I'm doing it might have something different to offer. And I'm just keen to keep seeing how, like, hopefully the next album or EP or whatever I put out sounds completely different again, but somehow the same in some way. So,
Boyd Dweller says a bit of a wank. Fusion is where it's at. I agree. Eunice, I have no idea to say your name, man. The album is sick. What are some of your favorite modules?
I love Marbles, which is a random function generator. So it has a quantizer in it as well, and I've used it a couple of times, but I prefer just what it does with sound. It has this knob in it called Deja Vu, which is a probability scaler. So the more I turn it into the positive, the more it will allow certain beats or notes through. Or if I dial it this way, the less probable. So it kind of, and then synced with clock dividers, which are basically like take a metronome and divide it by a multiple of that clock. You can get some fucked up rhythmic shit happening. And so, yeah, on the album, there's a track which is called Jacob's Escalator. And it's basically just like a... And the kick pattern, the kick in that is always changing, and that is being triggered by the Marbles module. So I kind of set things up and I tweaked it as it kind of went to, so it changes the density of how often that kick drops, and while the snare is just like this clockwork fucking metronome thing the whole way. And so that module is a lot of fun. And then all the other modules I like the most are distortion modules, pretty much, because the way that modules distort analog VCOs, oscillator sound, is not too different from guitar, but there's this thing called frequency modulation, like FM, where you can fold one wave over another, and they kind of, you know, it's really hard to explain, especially with my fucked up brain. But it can be heavier than like a metal zone or HM2. You can get some nastier sounds than that out of it. So modular distortion. Also modules like, what is it? Line levels like 5 volts or something. Modules operate at about 12 to 15 volts. So there's a lot more headroom for sound processing with modular distortion. I mean, in the end, it kind of all comes down to the same when it's at the end of chain, but there's different characteristics to modular distortion that I really like that blend well with the guitar stuff. So, yeah.
Void Dweller asks, do you just record your modular stuff and like sample it when you compose the track later? Do you plot out modular setups to compose things along with the track composition?
Bit of both, bit of everything. I use on this album. There's a lot of one-shot stuff where I kind of was putting cherries on top of the main tracks later with like a lot of those and like stuff like that. It's just like one-shot stuff that I know how to get that sound out of the beast, and so I just set up and maybe I'll record 10 minutes of repeating that sound and pick the best one. But then like there's other stuff where I like the where brain cells go to die, the ambient track, where I could spend a couple of days tuning the system to do specific things, and then I'm like, there's often times where I'll have a patch set up for a week until I actually get to the point where I'm happy with it enough to press record and let it go, and then pick out the bits that I like from that, and maybe that will form the some of that approach can. So on Sin Cost Tan, the whole baseline for that was a sculpted sample and hold function going through the Marbles random modular random sampler. So it took me a while to kind of dial that in, and then I just hit record and then wrote the rest of the track around that baseline. So sometimes it starts with modular stuff. Other times the modular is like the last in the chain.
That's crazy.
Just depends on the track, depends on what sound I'm kind of going for or what's required for that riff.
You're really good at making like these sounds with your mouth. When are you gonna make like a song that's just a cappella?
No. It's called a New Zealand accent. No, I'm joking. Yeah. I still do not own a microphone, and
How'd you get your vocals on here?
Well, the vocals are not me.
Not you. That's right. Yeah, it's somebody else doing it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But like a lot of people in their modular setups have mic input stuff so that they can, affect their voices or use stuff that they're doing to fuck up and morph and turn into weird shit. I do like vocoders. I think they're kind of they're used a lot. Think about like was it that track on Catch 33, the Meshuggah thing? It's like kind of like, I don't know what it's called, but there's like a breath box or something where the guy from Chromeo uses one. It's like a tube he puts in his mouth, and when he talks, it comes out of the vocoder like a crazy robot voice. Stuff like that. I kind of like that, but I don't know if I would use any of that sort of stuff.
Dude, you should totally do something like that and just like fuck it up a bunch, and
maybe
have that be the vocals, like some sort of like crazed computer or whatever sound. That'd be awesome.
That's it. Well, again, I'm definitely keen to have more of a vocal element moving forward, but I'm not sure if I want that traditional approach to verse, chorus, whatever kind of stuff, because the music's kind of not quite like that. So fucking it up and post effects and stuff is always probably going to be a part of it. If that can be done live, well, maybe we'll look at that. But again, I need to work out how the vocal component of doing a live show is going to work, and it's probably going to rely on people being available, and I don't know, we'll see how that goes.
Void Dweller is saying that it's called a talk box.
Talk box, yeah. I think
Peter Frampton.
Peter Frampton. That's it. I knew where it came from. I just couldn't remember. It's all over the Soul Niger Within album again. Frederick Thorndale's Special Defects, probably the album most instrumental for me ending up here at this point making this weird music. And I'll send you the link for that in the chat later on. There is some talk box on that album, and yeah, I like that stuff.
And also, Void Dweller, the name of the bird is Klaus. Is that right, Klaus?
Klaus, Klaus,
He's
is it
just been
babies?
chilling here the whole time. I'm really surprised.
Babies, babies.
So, what was the last thing you listened to?
Okay, so before we actually started casting, I was saying I couldn't remember until I checked back on my Spotify, and the New Caledonia is a band who were around in the early noughties in New Zealand. Not completely instrumental, but incredible instrumentation. And I would say they're somewhere of a cross between uh, Cinematic Orchestra, Animal Collective, Chon, and then weird, proggy, odd metered, fucked up time signature stuff. Their drummer's amazing, and he's the guy. He is the guy who is going to be contributing to Infinite Hex stuff in the future.
Okay.
But yeah, the New Caledonia, they have a EP, I think it's like 6 tracks called Lotus, which is up on Spotify, and it's fucking it still sounds as fresh today as it did back then. It's incredible recording, incredible music, incredible dudes. Yeah, that was the last thing.
And what's your album of the year so far?
Album of the year. Ooh.
That's kind of a hard one, man. A lot of good stuff's
I
coming
know.
out.
Like I've probably listened to the Fawn, like Darwin Falls, Fawn Limbs, the most since it's come out, like nonstop. Not nonstop, but like since it's come out, I've probably spent the most time on that. Fuck, what else? I did really like Alexis Marshall's stuff, but that's very much got to be in the mood for it.
Dude, I still haven't listened to that.
Yeah, it's a lark. It appeals to the kind of industrial junk jazz side of me. It's not something I would reach for all the time, and often I kind of look backwards when I'm to get new stuff, because there's so much music and history that we don't always uncover or come around to retroactively. So I confess I'm not always on the crest of what contemporary stuff's just come out and shit. I do love the latest Thin release. I love Under the Piers new shit was cool in terms of that kind of music. But then what else?
Yeah, Void Dweller, the Alexis from Daughters is what we're talking.
Yeah. I'm often listening to old shit. So the new Zombie EP was pretty cool. Not quite as cool as the stuff that got me into them in the beginning, but
dude, that's another one I meant to check out. Oh my gosh, so much stuff, dude. And then I'm like catching up on bands for like this and stuff. That's so like I'm constantly listening to stuff. I loved Zombie Spirit Animal. That was the thing that really got me into them.
Yep. Spirit Animal was cool. They definitely have a few different shades to their sound, where sometimes they're trying to do more proggy band stuff, and then sometimes they're trying to do the horror soundtrack like Goblin kind of stuff, and then they've got like the Italo disco stuff that, I mean, I love it all. And Steve Moore is an incredible composer. I should probably use this opportunity now to say that the remix of Sin Costan, I got him to do. He was just like, he was on his
okay.
The zombie guy on his Instagram was like, I seem to be doing lots of remix shit, and while we're on lockdown or whatever, so if anyone wants shit remix, hit me up. And so I was like, okay. And he was like, okay. And we came up with the remix for it, and it was great.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Steve Moore has a very wide palette of sound that he draws from, and I love his approach to it, all of it really. But with the zombie stuff, a good album to check is the one before that, before Spirit Animal, I think, is Surface to Air. That's got a lot of the more straight up odd metered, more raw drum, arpeggiating synth sort of stuff. That was what really got me into them in the beginning.
Yeah. So, you don't have going on with the merch.
I know.
No physicals.
Well, like I said,
shirts up,
like I said,
nothing.
this is just me, and I'm not super rich, but I spent a lot on getting the album cover artwork from Pa, and then like on production stuff, and in the end, it's just me doing this stuff, and I've just found a supplement printer in the States, so there is merch coming. There's definitely merch coming.
What about physicals?
So yeah, Tomb Tree Tapes have issued Simulacrum and Stimuli on cassette, which is the tape arm of Zegama Beach Records.
What about
Dave Norman.
CDs and stuff?
Yeah, I was going to do CDs, and then it came down to, like, at the time it was like, the album release is coming. Oh shit, it's going to be one or the other. And definitely the way that vinyl is at the moment. I mean, this is still a new project for me, and I think the next album I will try and do vinyl and do a proper full physical release for. But I did want to have one physical thing for this, and it just ended up that tape seemed to be the better way to go at the time. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So thanks to David Norman for taking that on and making that real. I don't know if you've seen them.
I have, like, the
swirl dips. Oh, I love that shit. It's cool. I'm not like I don't actually buy a lot of vinyl because I don't have a good record player, and
also it costs like $1 million to ship it to,
and it's expensive and all the stuff. So, but I still, as a format, I love it, and what you can do. Like, the artist in me loves what you can do with the medium and the different variants and colorways, and that's all cool shit. I love that shit. So the swirled tapes is something different to the norm. I love it.
Well,
so yeah,
that's about all I had notes for. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Cool. No, I think that's good. That's good with me, dude. I'm good.
So if you're looking for some of the oddest electronic metal stuff you'll ever hear, look no further than Infinite Hex's debut album, Simulacrum and Stimuli, which dropped last Friday, and will be on Spotify this Friday. You're on Facebook, Bandcamp, Instagram, YouTube, and as of this Friday, all streaming services. Any social plugs I'm missing? I guess Tomb Tree Tapes. Go check them out and get the tapes. Yep.
So, I mean, I've been posting stuff from my Instagram, the Facebook, and so the tapes are available now. But I think with the rate of international shipping being brutal, that people who are wanting to get one down my neck of the woods are probably better to wait a week until they turn up here, and then I'll have my own cache that I can send, and they'll go up on the Bandcamp merch page once I receive them and they're ready. But otherwise, they're there now on the Zegama Beach Tomb Tree Tapes page for the Infinite Hex release. And
one thing I did want to ask you about before we get out of here, you have a YouTube channel, but it only has one video on it for Infinite Hex. Are you going to be making more videos and stuff? Maybe videos about how you make your,
totally. I only just set that up. I definitely only just set that up to host the Syncostam video. Like I said, newish project, but now that I've got this album, and it's the beginning for me, really. There's lots of stuff to come. Definitely like doing the patch stuff, which is more the modular centric things that I'm trying to incorporate into this project. I've been doing I posted a few bits on the Infinite Hex Instagram of that stuff, but I think the YouTube will be a good receptacle for more of that stuff coming forward. So moving forward.
So check out the YouTube, guys. For me, find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube folks, if you like the video, please drop a like, click on the notification bell. Don't forget to subscribe. It's a great way to support me for free. Check out my music, The Sound That Ends Creation, at thesoundthatendskreation at bandcamp.com. My next guest is MySpace All-Stars, Bedlam of Cacophony. Join us this Sunday, the 29th at 7 p.m. Central for the live cast. Thanks for being here, Otis. Hope you had a good time. And Klaus.
I did. Klaus had a good time too. Yeah. Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And thank you guys for watching and listening.